Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Chilluminati. Today is a Jesse kind of episode. Sure, the boys are here. As you might know them, the Mike and Alex of the Chilluminati.
I thought you were going to say of Los Angeles.
Really? You did. You took that bit and ran it into the ground. Great job.
That's right. Hopefully it's dead and we never have to do it again.
This is like the Red Wedding.
Today's episode is a good one because
we haven't filmed it yet. You don't know that. I might suck. You guys might hate me.
That's true. It could happen. Make world.
Chaos already.
I am going to stick with what I said and not change it at all because many of you know there was a time period a few years back. Some of you may have forgot. I think a lot of people blocked it out, actually. There was a time period a few years back where everyone was kind of stuck indoors and the world was going to shit, and it was not a great time to just be around. And during that time, I spent much of it on my phone, staring into the void that is that black mirror and wondering what's going on out there. And what I saw was crazy. I saw things like the Roman Empire wasn't real.
Classic.
I saw things like giants. They're back, baby.
I went forward in time and no one was around in 2027. Everything was empty.
Yeah. They teleported in the future. Yes, I saw all the greats, the classics.
Were these online or were these my texts?
Oh, I mean, maybe both. Maybe both. We were definitely sending each other back and forth some insane things that were happening. But during that time, from the ashes of
civilization,
of civilization itself, a young man, a MiniMinuteMan, if you will, rose up as an influencer with the best kind of influence. Fact-based debunking of stupidity and bringing it all back into the world of archaeology. I, of course, am referring to Milo Rossi, who is joining us today. If you have no clue who this gentleman is, I must stress, what are you doing? Stop this, go Google, come back to us when you're ready, because this is definitely a Jesse episode. This man has taken on everything from ancient aliens to giants to flat earth to really everything that I'm sure makes this podcast fun for a lot of you.
I'm in the right place today, fellas.
Oh, yes.
You absolutely are.
Millions of other people around the world have joined me in watching and showing up for premieres of various videos. But yeah, this is a coup for me getting you on here. Thank you so much for being here. This is going to be awesome.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for having me on here today. Jesse, I appreciate your introduction. If this is a Jesse episode, I can't imagine why you would have any other episode. That was slick. That was off the cuff,
Thank you.
That was real good.
Yeah.
As Jesse said, I'll give a brief introduction for those of you who aren't familiar with me. My name is Milo Rossi. I am an archaeologist, environmental scientist, and a science communicator. My primary platforms are YouTube and TikTok, where I more or less use the pseudonym MiniMinuteMan, but I'm trying to work a little bit more with just Milo Rossi now, so you can find me by searching either one of those.
Do it now. Do it while you can. Rebrand while you can before you get stuck.
Yeah, when it's too late, it's too late.
Yeah, it is. And it's too late for me, man, so keep going.
So most of my work, I kind of have two branches that I work in, which is doing both archaeological content, sort of talking about archaeological sites, visiting places on location. I have done shooting on location at Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. I've shot in Peru's Sacred Valley. I did a solo documentary trip across the US last summer called Dark Roots, which is a documentary series that we're about to be resuming. But the other side of what I do, as Jesse put earlier, is debunking conspiracy theories. So conspiracy theories is where I really got my start. During that grim time of COVID, I was working, doing environmental service work, sampling groundwater in the back of a pickup truck. And while I was there, I was doing nothing but staring into that black mirror. And I found a lot of people saying a lot of stuff that made my head spin. And so I, got my humble beginning there on TikTok. I, have expanded out. And I am now on TikTok, YouTube, but primarily YouTube, where I have a subscriber base of almost 2 million. I gotta say, things show no signs of stopping. So it's good to be here with you fellas today, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about archaeology, history, and conspiracy.
I want to make myself feel terrible. How old are you?
I am 24.
I love it.
God Jesus Christ. You're living my dream. As a kid, I wanted to be an archaeologist so long, and I failed at that, so I went YouTube entertainment, and goddamn, here I am.
You can succeed at it and go YouTube entertainment.
Here we are at the Nexus, gentlemen.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's one of the things I think is the best.
Yeah.
Is as a just decrepit old crone, I am so excited to see anyone especially who came out of the COVID cycle of YouTube, because I think the three of us here started in the 2010 wave.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we've been doing this far too long.
We're like second wave.
Yeah, there was that early
Yeah, we're not quite the OGs.
But then there was this everyone stuck at home wave, and so much came out of it, but so much of it ended up being like, ooh, what are we doing?
It was a harrowing time.
A lot of brain rot.
And so to have anyone young be interested in being like, first off, one, I'm going to work this thing and be very good at it. And two, not be just bullshitting all of you is the nicest, sweetest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm like, I will show up every time. Where are we going?
You flatter me, Jesse. Thank you, sir.
The world of the stupid is infinite is the reason why this podcast even exists.
Truly.
And while I like to say we try to do as much research as we can, to have somebody who's actually a fucking archaeologist and has that knowledge is going to be a treat. The most recent example of something we did that was fucking insane was the lands beyond the ice walls of Earth.
You mean Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes, Dungeons and Dragons. Ooh. Yeah, that one was fucking nuts. And then to trace it back to a magazine weekly that people just kind of took as truth. And then this dude just cribbed that. Nos Confundum, his pen name, and made 10 books about this thing that people think are real. I'm like, okay, well, I'll have a podcast for as long as I want.
Can I ask, because you probably have some better understanding of the processes here, why is it that people just, if it's old, people just accept it as truth?
That's a great question, Jesse. That's it's a tough question because it's something that we see, I think, displayed all the time. In my most recent video talking about, Philip Ziba, he was citing and referencing a bunch of these articles from the early 1900s talking about giant skeleton discoveries and all this stuff. And there's kind of this weird thing that happens in our head where for some reason, if something was written by people who aren't alive anymore, we kind of just view it as being somehow it's higher than. It was written at this time when people just understood things better. And they weren't afraid of the media and the press, but they were just as fucking ass backwards as we are now and knew even less.
Yeah, they were dumber.
Yeah.
So, it's a beautiful irony where we hold antiquity with a great reverence. I know that very well. I'm an archaeologist. But it also comes to bite us in the ass when people are willing to look at, very antiquated sources that are clearly completely full of shit. But because they are old, they somehow know more than we know today.
It reminds me of that. Is there the ancient Egyptian or Greek? I think it was a mechanism that just was there to track the stars. It was really
the Antikythera mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And people are like, well, that means they must have had technology that was well beyond even ours. And I'm like, no, it just means that they were humans and it's kind of smart and could figure shit out, but they weren't teleporting around the planet or anything.
My phone can do that. I don't know. Yeah.
It's funny because, the conspiracy kind of, it's a pipeline, as all of these things are, where, it kind of starts out as being ancient people were much more advanced than we give them credit for. Absolutely. 10 times out of 10, complete thumbs up on that. And then it's but they had technology that we now have. And you're okay, wait, pause, what kind of technology? And then they had technology better than ours. I'm yes. Absolutely not. I guess that does turn into that whole thing of, what does better truly mean? I'm not a fucking English major, so I'm not going to talk about that. Sure. But, there are ancient cultures that were, I would argue, more advanced in a way than us in the way that they were able to sustain their societies. Is the way that we live today sustainable? Absolutely not. We are driving ourselves into the ground at, light speed. But, there were, take for example, in, Mexico, many of the civilizations that lived in what is now Mexico had a, very advanced forms of biodynamic farming, where it did not destroy the environment, it enriched it and enhanced it. And the people were able to, pull from those environments in order to, sustain themselves, but they never decreased it. They never, made it worse. But the way that we live today is horrible. terribly unsustainable. So, is that more advanced? Because I could see that. But frequently when people talk about advanced, they're talking about it in the very like Civ skill tree side of things, where like, how many people can you kill at once? Like, that's kind of the level, like, did they have like nuclear weapons? So, it's kind of goofy that we kind of...
It's a meaningful metric, in some conversations, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
The topic I think we covered that reminds me the most is the Atlantis pair of episode we did. And that might have instigated as the most fury I'd seen from people outside of the one, Alex, where you did the moon landing one, which people are just like forever going to never believe.
It's like kicking a beehive. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I was surprised the Atlantis one was like kicking a beehive, as it were. My question, I guess, like, what video or topic did you cover that was like the biggest bomb that riled up the most like pushback?
It was covering Ancient Apocalypse, hands down. I still get flack for that. Like, because Graham Hancock has just this way of being like, he's the British accent. And so everyone will kind of like listen to him and be like, he prepared them by saying, the archaeologists they're going to hate me for this. And so the moment you criticize it, it's like, no, you're the one. I literally got a comment when I released, I think, the second episode, and it was someone saying, you are the one he warned us about. And I was like, oh my God. Like, do you fucking hear yourself, bro? Like, it's like cult mentality, and that's obviously
it's as simple as that too. Like, just putting a disclaimer, you're gonna hate archaeologists, gonna hate me for this. That's immediately sandbags anything he's gonna say, and no matter what it is, he'll be seen as giving truth.
Anytime pseudo archaeology is presented, it has kind of a veneer of I know what I'm talking about, because if you throw in enough facts here or there, it's like you have to agree with it. You're like, oh no, that's true. No, that's true. And now you're agreeing, and then you have to make the cut where you're like, okay, everything else after that's false. And then you're suddenly the bad guy because it's like, well, why is this first stuff true? And that's not. What are you trying to say? And now you have to explain yourself, and you're catching up to what was already said.
Explain empirical evidence.
Yeah.
And that's, that's a really good point. And I think it is something that really feeds into the way that conspiracies are able to propagate, which is that science is okay with not knowing.
Correct.
Pseudoscience is not okay with not knowing. Pseudoscience has to have every single thing figured out. Take, for example, Ancient Apocalypse. There's a lot that Graham Hancock says in that at the very, I would say that I can agree with about 80% of it. Like, ancient people were very advanced. There's a lot of archaeology that is buried, or submerged under the ocean where like the sea levels used to be lower. That's all completely true. What is there that's down there that we've never found? We've never found it, so I don't know. But then he takes it to this level of, so therefore there was an advanced globe-spanning civilization that went to every corner of the globe, colonized everything. Like, that didn't fucking happen. Like, you went way too far with that. But like, a lot of that body is true. And so that's the difference, is science will end at that 80% where it's like, yes, we know that the sea levels were lower. 400 feet lower at the during the last glacial maximum. That's significant. That's really, really far. There are huge bodies of land that are currently submerged that have just, been gone for 15,000, 10,000 years. And if you look at a map of the world today, all of our settlements are along major bodies of water, whether they be rivers, lakes, or oceans. And oceans is our big one. So like, if you're telling me that there's no archaeology 20,000, like, no one's saying that. No one's saying there's no archaeology, 400 feet below the water. But the thing is that is a discussion in archaeological communities. We currently don't have the technology to be able to adequately excavate and explore those sites. And so we're okay with saying, yes, there is stuff down there that will undoubtedly change the way that we see human history, but we can't get to it yet. And so for now, all we can say is, well, won't that be cool when we know? You know?
Exactly. When you can get there, you'll figure it out. But for now,
exactly,
I don't know. So it doesn't. One of the more classic examples of that is Ancient Aliens, that fucking TV show that's been around forever. I watched an episode with my mom like a year ago, and I remember them doing like exactly that, where they list out like things that are actual facts, and then they just jump to therefore it's aliens and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's really easy for people who are just like kind of sitting there and be like,
yeah,
oh, okay, that makes sense.
It's a marketing conversation almost at that point.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
At this point, you're just kind of like focus testing. Like when you don't have to rely on it being true or being supported by actual things that are out there in the world. It's just about getting people to be like, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Wow.
I get that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the aliens, like, you know what I mean though? Like the aliens are like, oh, that makes sense. Like they're like inside our brains. And that's like why I get headaches sometime. Okay. Like that works for me. Yeah.
I've mentioned this a million times, but one of the things my dad wanted to do the most was go to Machu Picchu. We went to Machu Picchu. It was beautiful. Everything about it was cool.
Yeah.
Except on the way, he met just like a dude in an alien mask. They became best friends. And everywhere we went, my dad would be like, so these blocks are like a ton. How'd they move these? Aliens? And I'm like, oh my God, Dad. Not
please.
while we're actually here. Not like but it's like, no, people move those. They just threw people at it and it moved.
Yeah. It's fun for the same reason as Harry Potter is fun, where you're like, oh, you mean just beyond the like mundane veneer of society, there's like a much more exciting, simple to grasp version that's way more fun.
Yeah.
No, don't get me wrong. I'm neck deep in the alien world. I love aliens, but like I can't get
neck deep in an alien.
Yeah, I wish I fucking was, bro.
He's got that little. Don't make it.
You've unlocked a dark lore to this podcast.
You've touched on something you don't want to touch on anymore.
Remember this.
He's the one he warned you about.
Thank you to today's sponsor, ZocDoc. You know when you're getting concerned by that aunt at a family gathering and you feel like you have to bend the truth a little. You know, the one who asks, when are you getting married? Or which is a promotion? Or why haven't you just moved down to your mom and dad's basement? As a man who lived in his mom's basement till he was 26 years old, there's nothing wrong with that. Only for her to not really listen to you and then judge you for your life anyway? Well, that's where ZocDoc comes in to make you feel a little bit better about some of that anyway. See, while you may feel like you need to grin and bear it with your family, you shouldn't feel that way when you're talking to your mental health provider about whatever's on your mind. This is where ZocDoc enters the scene. The place where you can search and book hundreds of types of doctors, including thousands of mental health providers, and book one who will make you feel comfortable and actually listen to you. ZocDoc has therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists with verified patient reviews so you can make sure that they check all your boxes. And with ZocDoc, you've got more options than you know. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare hundreds of types of highly rated in-network doctors, including mental health providers, and instantly book appointments with them online. You can search by location, availability, and insurance, so literally no compromises here, because with ZocDoc, you've got more options than you know. I've used ZocDoc well before these guys sponsored the show, so I'm coming from a place of actually having used it multiple times for multiple different things, both physical health and mental, and I absolutely, especially if you're like me and just like anxiety rules your life a lot of the time, doing stuff online, having ZocDoc as a tool to help you is invaluable, especially for me. All you gotta do is head to ZocDoc.com/chill and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then you can find and book a top-rated therapist or psychologist today. That's ZocDoc.com/chill. ZocDoc.com/chill. I don't like have you looked into the Nazca mummy thing? Because that drives me insane as somebody who's in the alien world, because that shit is so clearly not real. Completely. But it is persistent.
It is. Yeah, it's like a llama skull and like bird bones. Like,
yeah, multiple times.
Yeah, it's awful.
And they're like, it's not. And the people who are like, it's paper mache, they're like, it's diamastis earth or whatever. And I'm like, it's still animal bones at best. And like,
yeah,
but it's so persistent. It never gives up. There's hearings about it still in like Mexico and shit all the damn time. And it drives me insane.
And, you know, there's kind of this, you know, the classic poster with the UFO that says, I want to believe.
Yes.
That really sums up, I think, a lot of conspiracy theorist mentalities, because it does not matter how much undeniable evidence there is towards something, how good of a paper you can write refuting it. They want to believe it. Like, it doesn't matter how much evidence there is back.
It'd be cooler if it was true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. They want to believe it. And that's something I've struggled with my work a lot, where I'm like, who is the target audience of this? Because like, I am making this, and I am sure that most of the people who are watching it are people who will already agree with what I'm saying, which is great. And we all get a laugh, and it's fun. And at the end of the day, it's entertainment. But really, the people that it matters to connect with are the people who actually do believe it. And that's something that's really challenging to do, because the moment, you know, it's like the Graham Hancock thing. The moment I say, my name is Milo Rossi, we're going to be talking about Graham Hancock, and I'm an archaeologist, they're already like, no, I don't fucking care. He already told us you're going to lie, you know? So like, it's really hard to do that. And I tried my best to do it with the Graham Hancock series. That was the one I tried to hold a decently high bar. I definitely went in on him a lot, but like, you know, I tried to at least like ease into it to be like, y'all need to
deserved it.
Yeah, like listen, you have to like just entertain the other side. Like you cannot just sit there and, you know, as someone, and people will always, you know, I'll get those comments all the time from conspiracy people being like, well, you don't entertain the other side. Like you don't even give these things a chance. I'm like, my job is researching these things. If I found something that was interesting, I'd fucking talk about it, you know? But like, it's all so easy to shoot full of holes, you know?
There's a study I read many years ago it's a really simple explanation for these people who double down. Everybody in the world, you know, suffers from this. It's just when a belief that is attacked in their perception, should I say attacked or questioned or judged, the brain takes it as personal. Mm-hmm. The brain immediately goes into defense mode and takes it personal. And you have to actually take a second, that logic brain be like, separate your beliefs from yourself.
Yeah.
Because once you can start making that a practice, you start realizing I know nothing, but that's what's awesome because now I can start fucking learning.
Yes.
And that's what's, but getting to that point you'll have to allow yourself or that part of you to die.
It needs to be a natural growth within you, or else it feels like someone's forcing stuff on you. And if you're already in a conspiracy mindset, you're going to think, this is propaganda. They're trying to make me think things. They're getting in my head. So you have to come to it naturally. But the natural thing is everyone's like, we are waiting for you. We're being so patient. Please, just like, we're here and we're waiting.
Yeah.
Come on over. We're waiting for you.
Yeah.
You're going to wait a long time for some people.
In the end, we all just want to win the argument that we're having at the barbecue.
Yep.
We all just want the coolest. In the end, we all just want the coolest thing to say. And honestly, if I'm a fucking idiot, okay, and I don't know
go on
my ass from my elbows,
right,
and I just regurgitate whatever I read online, as long as you give me a gotcha, as long as you like John Oliver me a little bit, I don't care whether you're true or not. You know what I mean? I don't care whether you're, you know, a researched expert with credentials, or you're a guy who's trying to be silenced by big influencer. I don't know what the fuck I just want that victory moment. And I think like the people that you are winning over, to be honest with you, are those people who are just looking for that sick factoid to whip out.
Yeah.
There's no doubt like you have the reach where you're getting to people. They're getting to people who are making a realization or are able to start that journey of being like, wait a minute, I need to like look for evidence.
I'm glad you guys brought that up, both you know, Mike and Alex, is that you know, as much as I say it is hard to change a mind, and all of us agree you want to be the one with the snappy one-liner at the barbecue. Like nobody, you know, at the end of the day, Mike, it all comes down to an argument. You're going to stand by your guns, even if you're wrong, because that's just what we do as people.
Yeah.
We feel like it's an attack to ourselves to admit, you know, when you were misinformed or misunderstood something. But that being said, I do have a really large reach, and there are a lot of people who watch my show and they watch, you know, my channel and my videos and all that stuff. And the most inspiring comments that I've received were on that Graham Hancock series, where I got a substantial amount of people being like, hey, I just saw this on Netflix, thought it was interesting, watched through it, and I never even would have thought to question it unless I watched, you know, your video. And that's the thing that I think is really concerning about the Graham Hancock series is that, you know, with Ancient Apocalypse, it's made to appeal to a mainstream audience who may not already be into conspiracies, but it's a pipeline. Like it's a very palatable pipeline because it's really the only like, you know,
slippery and steep.
Yeah. Like it's really, you know, you're sitting there on your couch, you see something cool about history and it's mysterious and it's kind of cool. So you watch it, you get a lot of good information, but then the end is kind of like something that just is not true, like a straight up lie, something that's also kind of like putting in some jabs about how, you know, the archaeologists are the ones you need to, you know, be scared of, when the archaeologists are the ones that provide all of the real information that is told throughout the entire series. You would be nothing without archaeologists, you know? And so it's challenging because those people are, you know, getting it's priming the pump for them to end up in the conspiracy world. So the nice thing about really trying to take the time to really, you know, dissect Ancient Apocalypse was getting to those people first, because there's going to be people who are watching that who are like, you know, the fucking, you know, aliens people, the Atlanteans people, the, you know, extraterrestrial, whatever. And like, they're already in it. Like they're not going to change my mind for like, you know, Hancock he's like conspiracy light edition. He's like the palatable, you know, mask
he's
of the
weed.
whole thing.
He's the gateway drug. Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not going to change their mind, but the person who just sat down on his couch to watch it because he was stoned and wanted something cool to put on in the background, I might be able to get to him. And the proof is in the pudding. A lot of people I did. So that's why I do it, because at the end of the day, if I can change one person's mind, it's fucking worth it.
Agreed.
That's vibes. So let me ask you this question then, just because I ask this to every guest that comes on the show, and I think it's fun. Assuming, like you said it earlier, like science is fine with not knowing, pseudoscience is not. So let's go in with the scientific cap of we may not know the answer to this. Contrary to the objectivism that we pursue, right? Contrary to that, are there any moments in your own personal life or in your family stories or anything like that that are like a traditional classic ghost story or alien story or hairy thing in the woods story? Is there anything in your own spiritual world that you are like willing to?
Are you friends with Bigfoot? I think what we're asking is, do you secretly have a friendship with Bigfoot?
Has anything ever made you go, what the fuck was that?
And is it the same Bigfoot that's married to the woman who blows Bigfoot in Maine, I think?
No. Yeah, they're starting a weed company together.
Alex, that's a good question. And I want to preface by, adding something on here, which I really wish I had started kind of earlier on, because I'm sure there are a lot of viewers, that you have who are, I also don't want to blanket of like conspiracy theorists. Like there are a lot of skeptics. Like I believe in aliens. I don't like not believe in aliens, So like, I don't want to like come on here and be like, if you have anything that's out of the ordinary, like you didn't see it, you're making it up, and like, fuck you. Like, absolutely not. Like, again, like science is, if we don't know, it just means we don't know. It doesn't mean it's not possible, And so to answer that question, Alex, I don't think I have a really good one, like, a family story that's been handed down. But I do have one sort of like paranormal experience that I had as a kid. And I was very young, so I may misremembering it, but I'll relay
it's like
it.
Part of the charm of it, isn't it? Yeah.
So this was probably when I was like 5 years old. And I was staying with my parents at a inn in like northern New Hampshire. So it's like in the snow, it's in the winter.
Automatically spookier than most parts of the country.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's like old. I don't know if you fellas are, New Englanders, been to New England, what
grew up and raised out in the Boston, Rhode Island area.
That was where I'm from.
Hell yes.
Yeah. So I'm in this, this inn way up in the woods. It's an old ass building. It's beautiful and quaint, but they have that little kind of air about them. The room that we're staying in has 2 beds, and a wall at the foot of the beds with a door, and the door leads into like a little like living space area, and then that goes outside. So there's 2 beds next to each other. I'm at the one that's facing the wall. My parents, the feet of their bed is facing the door. I'm sleeping. I wake up in the middle of the night. I think I dropped like a stuffed animal that I had. I had this stuffed cat as a kid. And so I reach down to get it, and I stand up, and there's a woman standing at the end of my bed, and she has long, like black, straight, glossy hair and a white dress, and she's holding a black cat. And she looks at me, and I'm like stopped, and it doesn't feel like threatening. Like for some reason, I don't feel freaked out about it. And she turns and she just disappears through the wall. And to this day, I don't know if I made it up, if I dreamed it. I'm a kid with like a vivid imagination, but like that is like the one thing that has happened to me where I'm like, I don't know what the fuck happened with that.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
That's wild. And God damn it, I'm jealous.
It's a good one. I've had nothing like that since.
I must stress, every time anything cool ever happens to anyone else, Mathis is over here just like, I'm so jealous. Nothing cool ever happens to me.
I'm so jealous. I want something to happen. Come on.
One day, bud. One day you're going to like hallucinate something cool and it's going to be great. And you're going to be like, wow.
Hey, listen, bro.
One day you'll be a 5-year-old in New Hampshire.
When I was on mushrooms, I knew I was on mushrooms, okay? It's not like I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm not counting psychedelics. That's psychedelics.
Yeah, that's not a mystery. Yeah.
No, that's not a mystery.
But you could say it like unlocked a part of your brain, and then you could have got something cool out of that.
Here's what we're going to do temporarily. For $10,000 on the Patreon at patreon.com/Chilluminati, a great website that you can go to support us. This is just incidental.
You finally managed to cram it in? I have to. This.
No, but here's what's the deal. Normally we say if you pay us $10,000 a month, Jesse will just believe in the paranormal now. Here's what we're going to change. This time
hasn't worked yet.
No one's taking the bait.
No one's done it yet. Weird. It's crazy.
This time, if you fund at the $10,000 a month level, we will construct a perfectly executed like hoax on Mathis to give him a paranormal experience that will satisfy him and that will make him feel like he's finally interacted with the unknown.
You guys, I'm going to be telling the story on the episode, and you guys, after I leave the call, at the
No,
end,
we will not react at all. We'll be like, wow.
No, exactly. So
That's
when
crazy.
I leave, you guys can be like, I'm so happy we did that for him.
You strike a hard bargain there.
It's full IG.
It's like you fellas are gonna have 10 grand.
Yeah, full IG, bro.
And I must stress, I think we all know what it's going to be. It's going to be like Mathis alone at home, and the windows are going to shake violently, light's going to come through, and then just like, we'll pay someone to dress up as like a sexy
and
alien.
just touch his butt.
And
Yeah.
like,
Oh, let's go.
yeah, like,
just touch his butt a little bit.
we know what it's going to be.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have $9,915.
Hell yeah. Now you're thinking.
That's a profit.
Business.
That's what we call a profit in the biz.
Well, I feel like we gotta like go through the old list.
What's the list?
One of the things, I mean, you already mentioned aliens, and I think everyone here can agree that in a universe this big, there's got to be something. So that's not even a conversation. But what are your thoughts on like, boy, I was about to deep dive into the lore of, we've learned a lot about aliens on this show, and it turns out they're far more than just like the, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And most of them, I'm pretty sure, are racist. It's a little weird, but what are your thoughts on aliens on Earth?
I just don't buy it. I don't think I've seen enough evidence. I've seen some stuff, like I've seen those, recently there was kind of that release of footage from the US military, I think, showing those like pill-shaped things.
Senate hearings, etc., Grush, etc.
Yeah, congressional hearings and shit.
And, that's the kind of thing where I think it's worth noting the difference between a UFO and an alien, where
Yes,
a UFO is anything that is flying and you don't know what it is. So I don't know what that is. It's a UFO. Do I think it's an alien spacecraft? I don't have good enough reason to believe it is.
Correct.
Because if it is, it's the first time we've known it's happened. So that's kind of big. You need a little bit of evidence for that.
It's a wild stance.
It's a wild stance.
And unless you're like following the boring government shit that is happening all the time on the other side with this shit, is like, that's pretty much all you know, which you are actually the perfect example of the kind of person we talk about, of the person who knows what's going on in the UAP world strictly from what's kind of popular in the moment with their leaks and stuff. But yeah, to clarify, I am not the kind of person who thinks there are 12 alien fucking species. Let's not talk about.
Are you sure?
I am sure. Trust me.
Are you sure?
Unless they show up at my front door. If a Nord shows up at my fucking front door, we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, let us know.
I could arrange that.
I know, for $10,000. We
know a few Nords. Yeah, we can make that happen.
Yeah. The UAP thing is kind of like where I'm at as well, where like whatever these things are, all we know is that the government doesn't know or won't say what they are to us, because they're likely a mix of, I imagine, other countries' tech, our own tech, but then there's like the 1% of like, what is that? Government might not be saying anything. And if it is aliens, I don't think they're here mingling in with our society, having star children and having like hybrid series. I think at best, they would be doing what we do with wildlife.
Yes.
Just fucking observing.
That's what I was going to say.
Just being like, what the fuck are these weirdos doing out here in backwater Milky Way galaxy, and just watching us fucking go crazy on each other as half evolved apes. I think that's the likeliest of scenarios if they're aliens of some form in the first place.
I completely agree. I think it's the kind of thing where like we are the most technologically advanced species on our planet. There's no denying that. We've put shit in space. Like we've, make the internet. We're having a call right now from God knows wherever, all over the world. Like we're really advanced. We're fucking like rats, though. Like if something is capable of transporting itself across the fucking like vast emptiness of space, they are working on a different level. Like we are nothing compared to that shit. Like it is not even, the closest living ancestors we have, or like living relatives we have, are chimpanzees, who are pretty fucking smart, but like we keep them in fucking zoos and test shit on them. We're like, oh, they're kind of like, yeah, they're kind of smart. Like this one learns sign language. Like, I'm sorry, that's not fucking smart. I got a laptop. So like, if you think about the what it would take to get something from there to here, like we're a fucking blip on the radar. Like we're like interference. Like we're just kind of in the way, I'm sure they'd rather that like, they just didn't have to worry about us fucking sailing our ships around and stuff. But, it's probably like, do you guys have pets?
Oh yeah. Cats and dogs.
Okay. Well, I just got a kitten. I've always wanted a cat. I finally got a little guy, and it's fucking awesome. So, like every night, my entertainment is no longer, watching TV or doom scrolling. It's you take the nearest piece of string and you just fucking dangle it above the cat's head, and it's adorable. And it just lies there, and she fucking smacks the thing. That's what we're doing. If I had a fucking pill object that could fly in any direction at any speed, with no fucking gravity, like I'm like, oh look, these guys have planes. That's cute. Like, let's go.
I would willingly volunteer be an alien's version of a cat, though. Like, I'm fine. Like, bring me. I'll take me. I've said this many times, and I'll put it out there again. Maybe one day these technology airwaves will be heard by an alien, and someone will scoop me up as their cute little pet.
Mike, I'm learning a lot about you in this call.
Listen, that's why every guest.
Everyone does.
Yeah. This is why I didn't actually become an archaeologist. I just got really thirsty for aliens.
But there's like a weird thing that we do, and I think going back to what we were talking about with just people who are older, the idea that aliens, because they can travel through space and time or whatever from distant places, they must be like a Spock level of emotionality where they wouldn't pull pranks or be assholes or just like, I'm convinced if anyone's an asshole, it's an alien who travels out. We're in the middle of nowhere. I'm convinced they're not sending the best and brightest. They're sending guys over here who are just like, yo, I'm going to mess with these dudes.
Yeah, they're on like a weekend trip.
Yeah, we're like Joshua Tree to them. Yeah.
Joshua Tree.
Dude, that's where, oh man, if you're going on a vacation to Earth to abduct aliens, to go to Joshua Tree. It's like, that's where you go.
Okay, there's the conspiracy for you.
There it is.
Our solar system is like alien reserve land.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a nature reserve. They've already like pillaged all the other solar systems around us, but they're like, we got to that one last. Like, those little monkeys are kind of fun. Fucking leave them, So they come and like they go on vacation here.
Wait a minute, the monkeys learned how to split the atom. What the fuck?
Yeah. Like most planets, we'll go out on a limb and say maybe most solar systems don't have life, so they pillaged all those ones. But like this one has life. They gotta fucking give it to us. They're like, have at it. Maybe the little chimpanzees will get to space. Maybe like the chipmunks will. I don't fucking know. But we gotta give them a chance.
Yeah, I like that.
My money was on the chipmunks, man.
That's us, dude. We're just the rattlesnakes in that really long grass part of my hometown where they let the rattlesnakes live.
Ooh,
that's us.
Yeah, they're gonna overthrow you, dude. You got to watch out.
They very quickly learned we were probably violent. They came swinging in the first time. We had like weaponry and immediately got shot down. And we're just like, all right, we got to put a little bit of caution signs
like, whoa,
around Earth. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is, people immediately assume like if there were aliens and if we did strike them first, their first response would be like, fucking, Death Star laser the planet. Like, do you know how many people get attacked by bison at Yellowstone?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone, the aliens are posting a fucking video being like, look at this fucking idiot. He tried to pet the bison and he got like gored. Like, don't do that. PSA, everyone. Like, we are not even on their, if they wanted us gone, like, we almost made the bison go extinct. So
a shark attack doesn't mean we go out there and want to like fucking wipe all sharks from the planet.
Yeah, every single shark.
Area 51 might just be like a guy who fell in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
I honestly think it might be like, if they're here, I think it's scarier to me that they would be just kind of like neutral toward us as opposed to benevolent or malevolent. The fact that they're just like, they genuinely don't give a fuck.
Yeah. They're playing in a league that is so much higher than what we are in. Like, I don't even want to think about it. It kind of freaks me out.
I would feel good about that. That would bring me peace, actually. I would be like, thank God we're...
Part of me is really excited for the prospect of alien films being like Jaws, but it's just a man. You know what I mean? Like,
you do documentaries about going to Earth. It's like when the island you're not supposed to go to.
Yeah, like horror movies where like the human's gonna get you. Yeah, oh, that sounds great.
Yeah. Like, you got to be a real fucking idiot to get killed by one of those things.
Bunch of aliens swimming after dark and a human just like, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Remember that guy who went to the Sentinelese Island where he was like, I'm going to be diplomatic with them. I'm going to get together. And he tried a couple times. And the one time he got there, they fucking killed him immediately.
Like, wow. It's like, who would have fucking thought?
Gray's land, and then the government just captures them and locks them in a cage. Like, well, what'd you expect? Like,
They probably think our faces are on the end of our hands.
Damn, dude.
We film
them.
Because of our phones. Only people with the webcam access can see that joke. Yeah.
Patreon, $10,000.
$10,000, you can have access to my home webcam all the time.
But I feel like for sure, if there was like a tablet under the pyramid that said, Phil the alien landed here, So that's a thing people would talk about. It wouldn't just be like, we have to hide it from the world. No one can know the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Why would they?
The argument is that the world would go to chaos if we all learned aliens were real, and nobody would care to be living in the government and society we've created for ourselves anymore.
Maybe they shouldn't, but they're not because of aliens, because this shit fucking sucks.
yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like, bring it on. Just who gives a fuck?
Fuck this. We made it all up. Well, Jesse, I'm glad you said that, because kind of bringing it back to the archaeology side of things, where people talk about the ancient alien stuff. There's all that stuff about like ancient aliens visited us and they like taught us civilization. Like they taught us how to move rocks and how to do this, that, and the other thing. Like if we are sticking with the pretty plausible idea that if there are aliens and they've come to Earth, they're batting in a totally different fucking league. Why aren't they helping us now? Like, the thing they fucking helped us with was moving rocks. Like, we're really, in the grand scheme of intergalactic travel, we're not that far up from moving fucking rocks. Like, why'd they show up then and we're like, hey, here's how you put a seed in the ground. But now we're like, finally getting to the point where like, we've breached the atmosphere. That's pretty fucking impressive, no matter how you slice it. But now they stop helping us? Like, that's fucking bullshit.
That goes back to your earlier point of like, admitting you don't know anything is like, it's critical thinking 101. It's the next step. Okay, aliens, your argument is aliens came here and moved big rocks so we can make Stonehenge, pyramids, and what else?
Yeah.
And that was it? Like, that's what they did? What happened? Like, where's the rest of the evidence? And that's where it all falls apart.
There's none. Like, none of them died here. There's no, like, bones. And then,
we've done some stories that there have been aliens who have been, there's one buried in Texas. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where he was. That's great.
But it also comes down to scientific understanding, too. Just speaking of bones, it just hit me. One of the things I think is absolutely hilarious is when people use fossils in place of bones. Like these giant bones. And it's like, no, fossils are not bones. Fossils, that's just rock.
They're rocks that are shaped like bones.
And I think people don't realize that or never understood it or learned that. And so when they see a bone, they just, or they see a fossil, they just assume that's a giant bone of like a dragon. You're like, wait, that's not how that works at all, dude.
The amount of videos I've done where I have had to listen to someone say that they radiocarbon dated a fossil has nearly driven me insane. Where like their radiocarbon dating relies on natural material, charcoal, bone, wood, any of that shit. You cannot radiocarbon date stone, especially that old. Like the C14 breaks down in like 50, 60,000 years or something like that. So, and that highlights a really important point, Jesse, is that a lot of the reason that there's so prevalent, in conspiracy theories now and so many people subscribing to them is largely because of science illiteracy. And that's something that like you can't blame an audience for. And that's something that I try and temper with myself when I'm, bringing the fucking machete down, where I'm like, this is someone who just hasn't been educated in this. Like the difficulty with science is that it's something that you have to be taught. It's not just based in how you feel and your just like general observations of the world and things that sort of make sense. Like that's where faith ends. That's where like, a lot of these conspiracies end, where it's like, I think this, here's a couple reasons why I think it is, and that's the way it is. Like, that's great, but science doesn't work like that. You have to be taught science. You have to be taught the language of science. And if you just do something as simple as not going into a science field, or as bad as like having a bad experience with like science in the classroom, just not being engaged, you're making, being told that you're, bad at it or feeling stupid in it, you're not going to bother to learn the language. And then you're not going to be able to learn any of it. And then because you don't have that literacy in the scientific world, it makes everything seem so much more impossible. Like, well, how the fuck did they get a date from a fossil if radiocarbon dating doesn't work? And I don't even know how radiocarbon dating works. And it's like, of course you don't. You're not supposed to just like gut understand how radiocarbon dating works. You have to learn this shit. And so if you're not learning it, of course you're going to be skeptical when someone just tells you to trust it.
It's funny because you can't even like go work at McDonald's without like training.
They should teach them what radiocarbon dating is.
Yeah, that's in the video, in the VHS tape that they still have. Yeah.
The problem with, as a former teacher, the problem that we had in schools was at a certain point, it wasn't about teaching. It was about, there's a test. These kids have to take the test. They have to graduate. And so we're going to teach to the test. And so they need to know these questions and the answers to those questions. But there was no learning beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I obviously haven't been in school for a while and I haven't taught for a while, but like that was a huge issue. And I'm sure throw a world calamity virus at, like, I'm sure it made it worse. And to have people who
and every year, not to jump in, but there's also the education's cut every year in so many states across this fucking country. It's getting worse and worse and worse.
And this is something that, this is where I start to err into the kind of conspiracy territory. If ever conspiracy theorist talks about, oh, the government and you can't trust the government, like you literally can't, but it's not because of fucking aliens or because of, like they're hiding the Illuminati. It's because they don't give a fuck about us. Like it is literally like lesson A is people who are less educated are easier to control. If you don't give people the tools to critically think, you can tell them anything you fucking want and then tell them to be mad at everyone who disagrees with you and they'll fucking buy it. And that fucking sucks. Like it is literally watching people being taken advantage of. It is watching education systems being taken advantage of. If you don't teach people how science works and a scientist walked up to them and tried to explain it, they would think you're fucking insane. Like, I mean, we had fucking witch trials and shit about this where like, great philosophers and scientists were stoned to death and burned because people didn't understand what they were talking about. And that may seem like a very drastic way to take this, but that is at its core a person with this education and people who don't understand it and are being told by an authoritative body to fear it and to not trust it. And so that's why I make such a big stink about people, like in Ancient Apocalypse and stuff, where it's like, not only is it posing your own theory, which whether I think there's enough evidence or not, I'm glad that you're at least, that's science in a way, is putting your theory forward and trying to back it up with evidence, even if it's not very good.
Yeah.
But what I don't respect is people who will try and undermine, the entire base that has got all of that information. The methods and processes and peer review and literally hundreds of years of work by, tens of thousands of individuals who have dedicated their lives to trying to further the development of science as a whole, not just archaeology, but all of it. And so seeing that and seeing how not only it's, kind of being bastardized and their words are twisted, but seeing how people are being like, and you shouldn't listen to them and you shouldn't trust them, because that's how we end up in a really fucking dark place.
And like on that completely, you being completely correct, and to follow what the government's doing and what their policies are and how they're gutting things, they make it as boring and as difficult for people to get to as possible. Like for me, when I, really got more involved in politics, like almost a decade ago now, like it's a lot of work. It's consistently reading, but it's always reading something and then going to the source and reading the law itself or reading the bill itself. But that shit sucks. And the majority of people don't want to do it because it's just boring and uninteresting. And that's not so authoritarian figure. Just telling them what's happening is easy. And we talk about it when we've done episodes on cults in the past. The vulnerable are the most easy to sway or move because, and I mean vulnerable in all different ways, emotionally, physically, whatever, because those people are looking for an answer. They're looking for solid ground. They're looking for something that says the world is this way, and at least I know this and I can move it forward, instead of realizing that a lot of the world is chaos and a lot of people who are telling you you're okay are just gutting your social stuff.
It's also compounding, though. It's not just that's boring to read, or it's not just I wasn't taught this when I was younger or given the ability to, read things and determine exactly what is being said. Now it is the addition of not just a 9 to 5, but many people are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs in order to get by.
It's not enough.
And so you don't have the patience or the time when you're done to be like, well, I guess I'll read up on what's happening with the world. Like, I got to pay bills, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's a different vibe.
You want somebody to tell you why you have to live this sucky life and who to point that anger to.
You just want an answer. You just want to stop.
Yep, you want it to stop. Exactly that.
Yeah, and so if you get someone who can just point the finger and tell you who to be mad at, I mean, I'm a big special interest of mine as well is cults. I think cults are fascinating. Yeah. Like, it is like one of the most interesting parts of human psychology of how someone can subscribe to something that is not only so damaging to them and so against their own best interests, but against the best interests of literally every single person in their life. Like, it confuses me. And I think the best example of this, in sort of a broad scale of a cult mentality is I went to school at the University of Maine. And one of the facts that I learned there, which blew my mind, is at the beginning of the 1900s, Maine had one of the highest percentages of its population associated with the KKK. And I don't remember exactly what those numbers are, but you don't think that, do you? You're like, Maine, that's way fucking north.
Right, no.
Like, there, slavery has not been a thing there since like the 1700s. Like, that's been a long fucking time.
Maine has a chill vibe, can confirm. Yeah. Yeah,
and so like that's not something you really expect there. But it was the reason it was able to propagate is because it was a state that never really had the same economic boom as places like Boston or New York or something like that. It was a lot more rural. There was a lot of lumber. It was a really fucking hard living situation. And so you get people like the Klan coming up there in the early 1900s, and they see the way that people are living. Like, they are fucking putting their backs into work to make money for someone else. And this was before everyone realized how fucked up that system is, but that was what they were suffering from.
Yeah.
But instead of looking at being like, hey, you guys make a cent, the boss makes a buck, and you could die falling off a fucking log in the river, they were like, who the problem is? It's them. And it fucking worked because the people were upset and they were pissed and they didn't know where to fucking direct that energy. So if you just say it's this invisible thing that you've never seen, they weren't raised anyone who wasn't fucking white. Maine and Vermont flip-flop between the whitest states in the country even today. So they have no reason to not think that way. And so people were literally being taken advantage of by a cult-like group to sway them into thinking this way. And I'm sure a psychologist or a historian could probably refine what I'm saying here a lot more. But the crux of it is that you can prey on a angry and uncomfortable and disenfranchised populace by telling them who to be mad at. And that's so much better than being like, let's sit down and dissect why we're feeling this way. And let's really think about the greater causes here. Instead, you just say, no, it's them. And before you know it, boom, people are fucking dead. So yeah.
Like you said, it's compounding, and it eventually becomes their entire personality, their life, who they are. So when it gets to that point, trying to get them to come to see the other side of what just them being manipulated, it often means, and we've talked about this on the show a bunch, killing their entire life,
yes.
Bringing everything they know to be true and destroying the world that they've built for themselves and having to rebuild from the ground up. And that's painful, difficult. It's a hard step. But when you do it and you get to the other side, you'll never fall for that kind of shit again. You've become an educated individual, and it's but getting to that point, getting them to knock down their world and destroy themselves, or at least what they think they are instead of who they are. That's the hard part. And people don't want to do that, which is, again, goes back to them being defensive when you knock on their beliefs.
Yeah.
See, I don't want to fucking die. I've built all this shit. I can't have this be not true now.
Mike, I'm glad you say that, because that really highlights, I think, one of the most important things when discussing conspiracy theories. And that is that the most frightening phrase you could possibly utter is one that we've already said many times in this podcast, which is, I don't know.
Yeah.
It is horrifying. I have had to teach myself to be able to do that. I'm someone who teaches, and I've had to learn when people ask me a question, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And that's a really hard thing to do within an interaction. But the even more difficult version of that is saying that about the worldview that you have been taught and that you believe. Realizing that your entire life and your system of belief and the way that you view the world around you could be all built on a lie is horrifying. That's why I think we have so many people who are so, we live at a time where I think it's safe to say, whether it's personal ideologies or politics, it's a sin to compromise. And nobody is willing to budge even the slightest bit. Because if you budge, well, then what else might be wrong? Right. For the people who are working in the fucking lumber yards and risking life and limb every fucking day, if they look around and realize why they're working there and how fucked up that system is, before you know it, you might realize, oh my God, all of my buddies who have died in the fucking river died for no reason. They died to make someone else money, and I'm still here, and I will be doing this for the rest of my life, barely being able to put food from my hand to my fucking mouth until I either die in the river or from fucking something else, And so that's frightening.
And it is still that way. I now live in Texas. I've been out here for a few years.
Yeah.
And that is what I am surrounded by. These people who are good people. The people that I've had wonderful relationships with and great conversations, who consistently, because of what they believe in, it's the only thing they get fed out here, vote against their best interests while they're actively gutting things like their mandatory waters and mandatory AC time in the blistering heat, all that shit being actively removed for the people that they are voting for, because they don't get to see, that shit never gets reported on by the shit that they're watching and consuming. And so it is a cycle, and it's consistent, and it's out here. I
think for a lot of people, the reason why they will continue to work in the lumberyard, while they will continue to vote against their interests, why they will end up in a cult, or they will, any one of the many reasons, is a lot of people, it does go back to compromise, and that most of life is compromising, just everything you do all day, every day, and also acknowledging that that's what you're doing and accepting it. But a lot of people have a firm moral grounding that they're like, this is who I am, this is who I want to be. And it sucks because that is like, in a book, that is a great way to live. Like if you're fighting, the evils of Mordor, awesome.
Yes.
That's really cool. I love that for you. But like in reality, there's so much more happening around you. And sometimes the hill you're dying on is just like the wrong hill. But you just don't want to ever admit it because it's like, if I do,
that means I was wrong. Yeah. That's worse than having a fucked up argument, is saying that you were wrong at the end.
That's the people that are like isolating themselves from their families and just like deciding to just never return.
And in terms of conspiracies and cult too, the internet has allowed them to really have and immediately have a community too. So once they start in this belief system, they start having a community. They start making friends in this circle. And that also comes with having to step away from that. That means everybody that you're now friends with, you no longer are friends with because that world to you dies. Like there's so many layers involved. And I say this from experience, not coming from like a political kind of side of things, but just as you grow and you grow up, you're going to start realizing things about yourself, and you either reckon with them and like deal with it and grow and change, allowing that version of yourself to die, or you really buckle down and you never allow yourself to grow ever again. And that's just part of aging. Thank you so much to today's sponsor, HelloFresh. You know what you're getting with HelloFresh at this point. You've been with me for a while. I've been using HelloFresh every week for 2 years now, nonstop, with a couple of breaks here and there if I was traveling, which is one of the great parts about HelloFresh, by the way. I can literally just pause and not pay for, one of the deliveries because I'm not going to be around. They don't care. And you just pause it and they'll pick it back up when you get back. It's also a huge deal for me to like plan anything, especially meal planning. So having HelloFresh has helped me just ditch the meal planning woes and dive into HelloFresh's biggest menu yet, with over 50 recipes and even more market items to choose from every single week. You can also cut down on time spent in the kitchen so you can get back to enjoying summer sunshine thanks to HelloFresh's quick and easy recipes. Every week's menu features options that are ready in just 20 minutes or less. That's even quicker than delivery. And if you got kids, HelloFresh's line of kid-friendly recipes are picky eater-proof and perfect for families looking to shake up their dinner recipe rotation while school's out for summer. HelloFresh's pre-portioned ingredients also help reduce food waste by up to 45% compared to grocery shopping. And when you sign up today, you'll unlock free appetizers for life. Get the party started or enjoy a little pre-dinner treat with an appetizer of your choice in every Hello box for free. All you have to do is go to HelloFresh.com/chillapps for free appetizers for life. That's one appetizer per item per box while the subscription is active. That's free appetizers for life at HelloFresh.com/chillapps. That's CHILLAPPS. Thank you again to HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
I'm convinced everyone has to realize that they were an asshole as a kid.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like everyone needs to have that record. Like, oh no, I was a piece of shit. Like everyone, no, there was no like really cool kid.
Yeah.
We were all kind of, from about 16 to 20, we were all assholes. I'm convinced of this.
You're great though, Milo. You're great. 24, fantastic.
But there's the idea of knowing that I don't know anything and saying like, I don't have the answer, or like training yourself to be like, dude, no, I was wrong. Like just saying it out loud.
Yeah.
I think it hurts a lot of people to do that. Let me tell you, it's the most liberating thing in the world to be like, I was wrong about that. My bad. Like
to my own podcast, I will say like doing this podcast for 6 years has forced that habit of me of like consistently checking, like for all we do of the crazy shit, like we do, instead of wiki paging it, we read books, we try to do some research, which requires reading something and then be like, well, what's the source of that? And then building that habit over time, over 6 years of doing infinite topics, like it's become my natural being like, well, maybe I'm fucking wrong, but let me like research it first. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, no, I'm 1,000% right, or you're 1,000% right, whatever. It's just, but it's such a healthy, like Jesse said, it's so fucking liberating to be like, maybe I'm fucking wrong. Let me just go research it and figure it out so I'm not just babbling about out of ignorance and digging a deeper hole that I then have to work harder to climb out of.
A lot of the stuff we think we know is definitely something a parent told us. Like anything car related.
Turning the car light on
your
inside,
mother or father told you
illegal.
A car fact and you were like, yeah, you definitely got to like let that thing warm up for 25 minutes before. And it's
Bullshit.
like most modern cars don't have that problem.
Yeah.
Like it's not,
Were you ever told that if you turn the inside light on at night while you're driving in the car that it's illegal?
Oh yeah, I was told like you'd like crash or some shit. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I got told that shit all the time as a kid. And I believed that shit until I was in my 20s or something.
Well, Jesse, to what you were saying, the most important thing that you can have to better yourself is flexibility. And, it's like the tree analogy where like a sapling, in a strong wind, a sapling will bend. It has give to it. But a really big tree in a strong wind, it will stay strong until it breaks. And it has two ways of being, It's either up or it's down. It's not waving. It's either like this or it's shattered on the ground. And that's really scary because you want to have flexibility before you're like this. You want to really make sure you know where you're going. And you never really want to reach that fully rigid state because you'll break. And I think all of us here as people who kind of work on social media, we have a kind of unique side of, the coin here where the things that we have to, atone for when we make mistakes is not to like our friends and family. It's to a public audience, which some could argue is easier. Some could argue is harder. I know that personally, like there's been times in my own life where like, it can almost be harder to apologize for something to an individual than it is to apologize to a screen. Because, our audience, we can't see, they know that we're trying to do our best. But like a person, like you have a fucking like thing and you're like, I don't want to fucking apologize for that because I mean what I said,
When it's parasocial is when I don't like it. That's when that's when it weirds me out.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But the irony is I found the only person who has kind of a bad response to, you making an apology is yourself. People meet apologies with an overwhelming appreciation, like to the point where like, I think that it's just so rare for people to genuinely like not apologize, but like, or both apologize and to admit when they were wrong that like, it's really disarming. Like if you do actually like get someone and you're like, well, I think this thing. And they're like, oh shit, you're actually right.
Oh God, yes.
I have like 10 more fucking shots in this thing. Can I at least finish? Like, damn.
But like getting to that point, it's made relationships so much like, now we're getting to like weird like psychology shit, but it's just been like, it's made my relationships stronger with people to be just like, no, you're right. I fucked up. Like I apologize. How can I do better or whatever? Because again, that's when you just start becoming an adult and you start growing and you allow yourself to just understand.
I had a pretty humbling experience with that earlier, or kind of at the end of this last year. I had a video where I was at a site, and while I was at this site, it was like way in the middle of nowhere. It was like completely undeveloped. And for a demonstration, I picked up and showed off like a potsherd. And an archaeologist made a video about it being like, do not do that. And it was a gut punch because like I've always struggled with imposter syndrome in my field. And I've never been met with like I've been met with overwhelming love and support from the archaeological community. But I felt like I was back in school again where I was like, oh shit, I got like the red pen. And this time it's not just him seeing it, it's everyone seeing it. So like I made a video and I was like, guys, you really shouldn't do this. Like that was fucked up of me, set the record straight. You shouldn't be touching this stuff. And I posted and I was like, oh God, everyone's gonna be like, Milo, you fucking suck. Like you should take this shit down. You fucked up. Like that's awful. And everyone's like, that was wonderful. Thank you for like saying that. That's a very mature response. Like, all this shit. And I was like, wait, that was the right thing? Like, I was trying to do the right thing, but I thought you guys were going to fucking hate me for it, And like, even like the person who, made that comment, I've been in great like contact with after. We're going to be working on a collaboration later this year. So like, it's really exciting to like, take that as a learning opportunity, like use it as an experience to not only, broaden your own horizons and, enrich yourself, but enrich the people around you. Like most people have not had the education to not move potsherds. Like, and the thing that was embarrassing for me is I did have that education. I just got excited at the site and was like, ooh, look. so that was kind of fucked. But like most people don't know that. But like they could still come across a site. They could come across arrowheads. They could come across all kinds of shit that once you move it from its context, it's kind of fucking worthless. So it was important to be like, I can now not only, make myself feel a little better because I made right what I did wrong, but also now people have this information and they might not make the same mistake. So it's really, really important, more beyond yourself and for, people around you.
Really quick archaeology question, because you touched on it a little bit, but I think it's the same thing with a lot of, I don't want to say archaeology is like eBay, but I feel like roughly the idea is the value in something, both be it on a historical value or a monetary like eBay, is in everything around it rather than what it actually is. The history of the thing is more important than actually the like part of a pot.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Is that correct?
That is great. That is great. So what you're talking about is the archaeological concept of context. So context is where an artifact was found. So the example I always use is, let's say you found a arrowhead. And if that arrowhead was in a pile of animal bones, that would tell you something about that. If it was in a creek bed, that would tell you something about that. If it was in a human grave, that could tell you a couple different things. So that's all important. But now let's say I took that arrowhead and I put it in a box and I handed it to you and I told you to tell me what you know about the arrowhead. you don't know fucking shit other than maybe it's an arrowhead and maybe what kind of stone it's made out of. And you could probably tell me a bit about the process, but like, you don't know anything about it. And now there's 3 sites potentially that all are missing the arrowhead that would completely change the context of those sites. So, with the, in a human grave, was the person shot by it? Is there damage to the bones? Or was, it buried as a grave offering? Was it in an animal because like they hunted it? Or was it in a creek bed because it was lost? So like, that is the concept of context, where the place that an object was found and its surroundings are way more important than what the actual artifact is. So it's not about finding, the Ark of the Covenant. You'd want to find the Ark of the Covenant, and where is it? Like, what is the room that it's in? Where is it buried? What's around it? Because just the artifact alone is only worth something if you're, doing 1800s archaeology. We're trying to get as much gold as possible, And
this is, I think, a great example that goes to all of the things that we cover on the show, which is like, if you have Bigfoot footprints, is there anything else around there that says a giant man ape walked through there? If you are dealing with crop circles, is there anything else around there that would be like, okay, did someone make this, or did an alien come and like, this is a cool design, right? If it's a ghost, is there anything? The most ghost stories aren't necessarily the ghost, it's the lore of like, long ago, a bunch of angry prostitutes lived here. Like, that's what sells the story.
So, like, what actually happened to them? Did you see the prostitutes?
Man, I wish. We found out, and I don't know if it's open anymore. We found out that in Texas there was an old brothel that apparently had ghosts that haunted, and one of the ghosts was like, "Hey there, sugar tits," and I was like, "God, I want to go to that. I want to go there so bad."
They're closed. They literally closed. They were like, we discovered them, and then a month later they had been closed down. I was like,
damn.
Fuck.
It just wasn't meant to be.
I want to be in a dark room alone, and just have a ghost be like, "Hey, good looking." And I'm like, "Sup, ghost? How you doing?" That's what I want. I want to have that experience. I know it's not going to happen, but I would love for it to. I'm open to the experience.
Wow.
And that's called growth, Jesse, and we appreciate that.
Thanks, pal.
Patreon.com/Chilluminati.
Once you allow yourself to start doing these things again, like admitting you're wrong and whatnot, you also kind of allow yourself to start questioning things again, just like the world and things, in which for me, like in my 30s really has led me to a fascination with the science I'll never understand, like quantum mechanics and quantum science stuff. And to me, that shit is like magic. But if I had wished when I was a kid, like in high school, a teacher had opened up the door to like space for me and like really like dove into it, because that shit would have hooked me so long ago. But like Jesse said, you teach to a test. You don't teach to like the grand scheme of things. And so, unless you find a teacher that really like hits that note for you, it's almost like, hopefully, roll the dice and you figure it out.
They do a lot of, we'll let college handle that. The problem is the vast majority of people on planet Earth don't go to college.
Yeah.
And so, and most of the time when you get to college, you're only focused on the things that you were interested in getting there.
Yes.
So you don't go to college to be like, oh, damn, it looks like I'm into space now. Like, that doesn't happen to you.
The minute you're in high school, you're being told, what do you want to do? You got to start thinking, what do you want to do with your life? So when you get to college, you're supposed to know what major you want. And in reality, you should be like dabbling in a bajillion different courses and like maybe find something that gets you first.
And the worst part, and here's going back to the whole thing about how it's all a big fucking game, is college costs money.
Yeah.
College costs a lot of fucking money, which means that there is a literal bottleneck that is undeniable. That is, if you want to be educated, you have to be wealthy. That is fucking ridiculous. Like, that is one of the greatest motivations that I have for doing what I do, because I don't have a tuition. I can put videos out that millions of people see, and it's fucking free, and I get paid for it. I get ad revenue, which is sick. Like, it's not even like just volunteer work. Like, it's my job, but the people watching the videos who actually benefit from it don't have to pay a fucking cent, and that's awesome. So like, something I've really tried to do is like not put any videos behind paywalls. Like, my Patreon tiers allow for like early access to videos, or like early access to like the rough, first cut and stuff like that. But eventually everyone gets to see the same thing. There's nothing that's locked behind a wall, because that that system is so fucking ass backwards that I can't even fucking fathom it. And it keeps getting more expensive, and people keep making less money, which means that people can't afford to be educated anymore, which leaves them more susceptible to this bullshit. It's insane.
Dude, I never graduated college. I went, but I had to drop out for family-like reasons. I had to take care of like my mom and whatnot. I'm 38 and I'm still paying back my loans for college ridiculous. I never got a degree from.
And like that's the thing that's so like fucked up, is that like you cannot afford to pursue that education if you wanted to. Like the bottleneck for going to college should be whether or not you want to go to college.
Boom.
Like,
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm also like, as someone, I am college educated. I am not someone who's going to be like,
no.
You need to go to college if you want to get a good job. Absolutely fucking not. And I'm saying that more than just like me kind of talking out my ass.
Sure.
Because I went to a Voc Tech high school. Voc Tech was the best fucking thing that ever happened to me. I had I think 4,000 hours of environmental science experience when I graduated high school. I had friends that were plumbers and welders and carpenters and fucking HVAC technicians, like people in early education and healthcare and biotechnology. And like a lot of them, especially the people in the trades, welding, carpentry, plumbing, they never needed to go to college, and they were making fucking six figures out of high school. Like, that's awesome. And they're the people that keep the fucking world running. Like, we need stonemasons and construction workers and contractors and all this shit. And like, there's so much emphasis on this idea of like, oh, like if you don't go to college, like you're with the riffraff, you know? But like, I knew fucking, whatever the fuck his name was, Dan something. And he, he gets out of college and he goes into his dad's fucking carpentry business, and the kid's making $125,000 a year. And I'm like, what? That's fucking bullshit. Like,
and we live in a world now where the people like you exist on the internet, and people can, like, if they have a curiosity, actually truly educate themselves. And I'm sure you would encourage people to do so. Also, go to the source, like research, like where's it, where's this coming from? Read more. The internet I know it's a machine for misinformation.
Yeah,
but it's got equal amounts of actual
information.
Yeah, like it's out there, and it's not that hard to find.
The hardest part, though, is telling the people who have goodwill and good reasons for what they're doing, like you, Milo, versus someone who can come across with the exact same air of authority.
Yes. Yeah.
And just say a thing and deliver that free information, air quotes, and it just be bullshit.
Yeah.
People do that all the time on the internet, and that, I think, is where we need media literacy. But media literacy is taught to you in school, just not really anymore. And so,
dude, the video,
we're back where we started,
of plane MH370 being teleported away came back the other week, and I'm like, you fucking idiots! This has been debunked 9 times. The aliens did not warp away MH370. It didn't. It crashed. God damn. I love aliens. I just don't love that bullshit. Like, that shit is just like, it just muddies the waters and makes talking about the actual UAP stuff that we know very little of
really hard,
even more impossible to talk about. Which I actually, imagine talking about archaeology, actual archaeology, is infuriating because you have to get through a horde of bullshit that even alien shit doesn't have to go through.
Especially because archaeology is a field that is constantly developing, and we're constantly learning more, and it's one of those things that conspiracy theorists cling to desperately when, archaeology discovers a site like Karahan Tepe or like Göbekli Tepe, where they're like, see, it's so much older than they thought, and they were wrong. But like, every archaeologist is like, wow, this is older than we thought, and we were wrong. Like, that's how fucking science works. But because they try and jump to that shit, it now so much of the information about Göbekli Tepe and about Karahan Tepe is filtered through fucking bullshit. I have a pretty interesting example recently, and this is getting into, we're not going to get into AI, but I'm going to talk about AI for a second.
Yeah, no, please do.
When ChatGPT first came out, I'd heard about it. I was out of college, so unfortunately I never got to use it to forge a paper, alas. But I was curious. I use Notion as like my team workspace where I write my scripts and shit like that. So I had Notion. I noticed Notion had a built-in AI, and I was like, you know what? I'm curious if this can give me like a jumping off point. I was writing my script about the Gosford glyphs, and I was like, tell me about the Gosford glyphs, like fucking paragraph and a half, And it wrote a whole thing. It was like, the Gosford glyphs are located in Australia, and they are a set of hieroglyphics carved by Egyptians in whatever year. And I'm like,
what?
It's literally fucking wrong. Like, there's so much misinformation about the Gosford glyphs that this, computer brain is just digesting a bunch of bullshit and then regurgitating it to me. So again, not getting into AI, I use that as an example to say, like, there is so much fucking bullshit out there that, like, you almost can't talk about the truth of some particular sites because the waters have been so muddied that it's hard to find what's actually real. I noticed that too with Gunung Padang, which is also talked about in Ancient Apocalypse. You can't find shit about Gunung Padang now without it being filtered through some conspiracy bullshit, which sucks because it is the first time that site has found a mainstream audience in Southeast Asia that doesn't get a lot of publicity in archaeological news, and it's through fucking conspiracy theories.
It's that conspiracy theorists are treat scientists very much like they call it like a faith. They actively call like science like the faith of science. And I'm like, that's not how scientists are, but that's what they see. They think that scientists and people who trust in science believe in it blindly without realizing that as new information comes, that's the point. We're supposed to like hone to
it's about believing in stuff blindly as much as like believing in numbers blindly helps you understand math.
Yes.
Like I don't think it's a lot of, I wouldn't call it a faith.
Yeah. Science is about like doing hypotheses to find what's wrong about their hypotheses, to filter out the trash, to finally get to what's real. And that means new information is going to come over time.
The problem, I think, is that there's if you look at something from just your worldview, if you are putting your faith in, far out ideas and things that literally require pure belief, like things that you have no evidence other than I know it to be true.
Aliens are interdimensional from a dimension above time. There's no evidence of that. You have to believe that, and there are a lot.
You have to believe it, and so if you see other people, be it scientists or mathematicians or whoever, they must exist in the same sort of framework that you have. It's it's adjacent to the idea of,
yes, well said,
cheaters always think everyone else is cheating.
Yeah.
Like that kind of vibe.
Yes.
If I am doing everything that I do based on firm just belief, I don't need anything, I just believe it, then I feel like you must be the same way. Like you must have the exact same fervor for your idea that I do for mine. Otherwise, how could you believe it so fervently? And you put yourself in them, but like you can't do that. Like science isn't that. So most people are like, yo, I don't know, dude. The numbers told me this, so I'm going to check it out.
Well, that goes to them it being part of their identity and who they are, because it becomes them, who they are. And the other thing a lot of conspiracists do, and it'll happen to our videos or episodes a lot of the time, is there's always going to be one or handful of scientists, doctorates, people call them whatever, who are saying that literally peddling bullshit for the sake of whatever, money, maybe fame, or they're doctors in a totally different field, not related to what's going on, but they'll give their opinion. And conspiracy theorists will always cherry pick those people. But like, well, this scientist said this. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. They did. So zoom out. How many scientists are saying one thing versus how many scientists are saying that one person's thing? You have to look at the aggregate of numbers, which is empirical evidence.
Yeah.
But then it goes back to the idea of the scientists don't want you to know, but these are the truth tellers.
Because they're getting paid. Why would they tell you the truth? They want to keep getting paid. It's like, they're going to keep working no matter, like, there's other things they're going to research after this. There's more things.
Yeah.
What do you mean that they're doing this just for money?
Also, that's another goofy thing that I think is really funny about all the conspiracy theorists. So like, the Smithsonian covered up giant skeletons.
Yeah.
If we found giant skeletons on the continent of North America, we would have slapped those bitches in a museum and charged a fucking fortune for it. Like, they're like, oh, the Smithsonian run by the US government. And it's like, you think if the US government found literally the best fucking tourist attraction, money-making machine on fucking planet Earth that could not only bring a bunch of money, but also support like a slowly verging towards a theocratic country, like they are gonna fucking take that shit in stride.
And it's like that next thought, right? It's like, well, then what now? Why are they hiding the giant skeletons?
It's like what you were saying about context again. It's like you can glorify a fact as much as you want, true or false, like whether that fact is real or is not. But like if you can't contextualize it, it doesn't matter. Like, that's all you have to do to win an argument with somebody who's obviously wrong.
And the funny thing about the Giants one, just to kind of stick on that for a second, is all the different giant reports are totally different heights, which my primary degree, I've done 8 years study in environmental science. I love archaeology. I'm an archaeologist, but really like the thing that drives me is natural history, and archaeology is part of that. So I love the idea of like, I love the development of the planet, the development of species, evolution, shit like that. So I like the giant argument. Let's let our minds run wild for a second. Let's say there is a species of giants. A, what are they descended from? How did they end up getting larger? What environmental factors needed them to get really big? There are people that are big, the Maasai people of the, Sahara or of Africa are 6'7", which is very tall compared to like, the Inuit people who are like 5'1" or something like that. So that's kind of interesting. But then these conspiracy theorists talk about these giant skeletons and are like, this one was 12 feet tall. This one was 15 feet tall. This one was 26 feet tall. This one had 2 heads and was 35 feet tall. I'm like, what fucking species is this? Like,
listen. If we learned anything from Neanderthals, if these things existed, we would have fucked them. We would have fucked them. They would have been in our DNA. They would have been in us. Like, we would have been in them.
Totally. We'd have giant DNA.
Hold on a minute.
We would have been all up in each other.
If you think you're so smart, who cut down those giant trees?
Let's go!
Oh, shit.
In my opinion, dude, honestly, like, of all the conspiracies that I see, like, semi-frequently, that is, like, peak brain rot. Like, I see that, and I'm like, I don't even want to say be college educated. I don't even need to be fucking educated to, like, debunk this fully. Like, nail in the coffin, fucking 15 nails in the coffin. You could have an elementary school education and probably fucking figure out that's not true.
I cannot stress to you, I think it's hilarious when people are like, that mountain looks like a tree. I bet that was a tree.
Dude, I think, honestly, if there was one field that I could, like, plug into someone's brain so they just like understand it for all conspiracy people other than archaeology, which I would probably prioritize. But if it wasn't archaeology, it would be geology. The amount of people who just don't, because geology is also one of those things where like it's not really like a scientific discipline that you will study. If you don't go to college. If you don't go to college, you probably have never taken a geology class for the majority of people. But also, you would only take it in college if you're either a geology major or in environmental science. So it's not like something you take as an elective for the most part.
In California, you have to take exactly one geology
Really?
class. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So that's what I'm trying to say there. I think a lot of people would benefit from being made to take one geology class. Is there are so many conspiracies that are just based around not understanding what kind of rock you're looking at. Like, whether it be, it's a giant footprint, it's an ironstone concretion, that's what happens in sandstone, or it's a giant tree stump, no, it's a solidified magma chamber. Like, we just look at the way the world is shaped and then just say like, but it look like that thing. And that's it. Like, that's where the thought fucking ends. Yeah.
And that's what it is. Duh. Yeah, no, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
You described 6 years of our podcast in a nutshell.
It's funny to me that we do that with clouds. Like, that cloud looks like a dog, and that's cute. But if you do it with like a mountain, suddenly it's a conspiracy, which is insane to me.
But it also shows that people are, this is something that goes far beyond the idea of education. It goes far beyond, what environment we're raised in or what we're susceptible to. It's literally just the way the human brain works. Like we talked about at the beginning, and not to sound like I'm, writing a fucking manifesto, but we're rats. Like, we are smart fucking monkeys. Like, our brains are not calibrated to the world around us. Like, fucking 20,000 years ago, we were living very different fucking lives than we're living today, And that wasn't that long ago. And so our brains are programmed for survival to categorize things, to put things into boxes. Conspiracy theorists do it. Scientists do it. That's why we have, Linnaean like classification and shit like that, where it's like, you have the, genus, species, et cetera, and like, that's it. We put things in boxes, and then sometimes we get weird shit. We're like, I don't fucking know where that fits because it's not supposed to fit. That's not the way the world works. It's a nuanced gray place that, like, it was not made for us. It was not made with the intent of us understanding it. We just got here and somehow understand it at a better level than most other things, and it's confusing as fuck.
What we see, the world we interact with and see is the world our brain was evolved into specifically for us to survive in, and that's it.
Yes.
No extras. We got no frills. That's what for every creature, obviously, in their own way. But it's like what we experience versus what another animal experiences is like it'd be alien to us. What their Earth is.
our like job on the planet is to live long enough to fuck at least once.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it.
Now we've lived. We did a good job. Now we can do it at least twice. We've evolved. We've made it real far.
We figured it out. We scienced that. We got it.
Sex drove us to live about 80 years.
Bumper sticker. Born to fuck at least once, forced to fuck at least twice. Thank you, modern medicine.
But it's all true. Like what we see, what we interact with, how we deal with the world is all just how evolution decided was the best way for us to kind of deal with it. Who knows what what true reality actually is.
Yeah.
It sounds nihilist, but it's actually pretty chill.
It's psychedelic to me. It's fucking cool as fuck.
That's kind of the beautiful thing is, I've kind of aired a lot away from debates about religion because it's something that I don't even want to entertain. I know a lot of people who are religious and it drives them and it gives them, great meaning and purpose.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, it's an unfalsifiable hypothesis. I've had people comment on my videos being like, Milo, can you debunk God? And I'm like, what? Like, dude, if
are we dreaming, Milo?
Yeah, if anyone could debunk or prove God, we would have stopped talking about this 80,000 years ago. Fuck no.
Are we in the Matrix, Milo?
Yeah. So people ask me shit like that. But the thing that I think is really, I personally, I'm not someone who believes in like a creator. I truly do think that this is kind of just happenstance that happened this way. And that, when you go, you go. And people, I've had people ask me like, Milo, isn't that really fucked? Like, how do you get up in the morning? And that's exactly how I get up in the morning. How fucking beautiful is that? That out of all of this, out of the fucking cosmic nothingness that stretches forever, we get to be here and we get to feel things and we get to think things and we get to enjoy things and laugh and cry and all this fucking shit. And even of all the living things to be on this planet, we're human. We're the only species that we know for a fact can look back at the universe and understand it. That's fucking crazy. And as beautiful as it would be, and I see how people gain meaning and purpose from thinking that we are put here for a reason. I can totally understand that. But I personally find a great amount of solace in knowing that we weren't, because my purpose is exactly what I fucking make it.
Yep.
I am here by complete fucking happenstance. So what am I going to do with it?
It makes a bougainvillea bush 1 million times more beautiful knowing that it just came out of complete, just random nonsense.
Chaos.
And it's cool. Our brains can conceptualize things our brains can never truly understand. Like we can hypothesize and think about things like a fourth dimension and what a hypercube would be like without ever really being able to truly look at and understand what a hypercube would look like.
Yeah.
Our brains can do some fucking weird shit.
And that's the amazing thing about people is, touching back on evolution, is we went down a very weird evolutionary skill tree.
A lot of dead ends.
Humans are kind of fucked up. We spec'd really big into this, and no one else did that. Everyone else, they went into these or fucking these, but we took all of that energy and put it up here, which is amazing for us. It sucks for the way we're built. I mean, our chimpanzee is our closest living relative, and you could put the strongest man on earth against a chimpanzee, he would get ripped apart.
Face ripped off.
Dead instantly.
Yeah.
I remember there was this great class, my A&T 101, first archaeology class that I took, or anthropology class in college, and we were talking about human ancestors, and we were talking about robust Australopithecines. These are the ones that had a sagittal crest, which is a bone that runs along the top of your head, and it was a bone to affix more muscle to, so their jaws would be stronger. And I remember my professor, Dan Sandweiss, bless his soul, he fucking, he points to the class, he tells us about the Australopithecines, and he's like, who of you thinks that you could beat one of these in a fight? And then, some fucking, football guys in the back of the class taking it for the elective. Like,
yeah, of course.
Me. And he's like, absolutely not. He's like, you would be fucking toast. These things would just disintegrate you. And so that's great for them. But we did something very different. We're the ones who developed this thing. A brain takes a lot of energy to run. I don't remember what percentage it is, but the brain takes a majority of the energy of our body compared to any other given part to be able to function.
That's right.
And who outlived all the robust Australopithecines? So this shit's pretty fucking good. We work together, ape together strong. We don't need claws because we have these and friends. So that's kind of fucking sick.
Megamind.
Yeah. We spec'd into the idea of knowing not to fight.
Yeah, literally.
We were just like, oh no, that guy's gonna kick our ass. I'm gonna get out of here. That's where we put our brain.
Once our brains get horny, we lose all ability to think. That's the other problem.
And that's the downside of having to fuck at least once.
Right? We should have evolved, and I wish we could evolve enough blood to do both.
Yeah, that's at least once.
I think that's the reason that we're able to enjoy sex at all as a race, is because we stop thinking when we do it.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that Mathis, I think this like is who you are as a person. I don't want to define you this way, but I love the idea
I'm ready to be defined. Put me in a box.
I'm about to, like everything else humans do. I'm going to put you in a box. You as a person love the idea. Ever since we brought it up, it's been your obsession, and I love this.
Truly,
the idea of just quantum dynamics, time and space, that kind of thing, because it is truly, we do not understand any of it right now.
We don't.
We're struggling to do so, and it's almost borderline like sci-fi, but also religious, but also it's everything. And the concept that you could be both here and there at the same time.
You almost said it, guys.
Or 500 years in the future or 1,000 years in the past at the same. All that stuff is so like above the human pay grade. And we're just like, I don't know what any of that means, but it's fascinating. And I love that you have, as a concept,
love it,
made that like a core. Like, I love this. I want to know more about it. And it goes to the idea of just humans being like, damn, I don't know why I'm here, but God, I could be everywhere. It makes it even crazier.
The fact that like things that we've learned just from doing this podcast, so many different things that have kind of had breakthroughs over the past few years. What was it most recently where the James Webb Telescope discovered that the universe isn't spreading equally in all directions. It's actually like further in some and not in others, which wholly changes everything we thought we understood about the universe. And that alone is like fucking cool, because it's like, and a certain aspect of science was just shattered and now has to be rebuilt with new facts, because reality keeps being not what we think it is. And it doesn't make any sense the smaller we get or the bigger we get. And maybe time, because it can get warped with gravity or whatever time and space is. Maybe our brains evolved to just perceive time narrowly because it was best for whatever, like, who fucking knows?
Because once we know about the Eldritch Horrors, obviously we'd go insane.
Dude, Eldritch Horrors would be fucking cool.
No.
Only you would be like, those tentacles though, bro.
Right,
Let me tell you.
What was those Eldritch Horror dating games? Come on, they exist. I know that. I can't remember the name of it, though. You played it on your channel, I think.
It's called Sucker for Love. It's all right.
Yes.
But yeah, no, you're right, because I love the idea of just being like so small in a universe that's unknowable. Like, no matter what, in my lifetime, I will never understand what reality is, but it's cool to see that we learn new things about it still, and that's kind of fucking sick.
Well said.
It's a nice little thought to end on, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know it was happenstance, but it was a beautiful notion.
Yeah. Don't take nihilism as a reason to think nothing matters. Take it as a reason to think that everything matters, because every choice you make is your own choice. You're not destined for anything. You don't have the script laid out in front of you. There's no fucking, scaffolding for how this is supposed to work. You get to make every decision. You have autonomy, And so run with that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Do your best.
And remember, kids.
Good luck.
That goof you made in 6th grade that you still think about to this day, the universe will not remember.
Yeah. It will be forgotten, and someday you will be forgotten.
Thank God. And on that, thank you all so much for being here.
Nothing matters. I'm going to go drink a beer.
Yes. Milo, thank you so goddamn much for being here. This was a phenomenal conversation. I really enjoyed it. Where can people find you? You got anything going on? Like, where can people find you if they want to find more of you and watch more of your shit on the internet?
Absolutely, Mike. Well, thank you folks very much for having me on tonight. Once again, my name is Milo Rossi. You can find me on YouTube. I could say TikTok and Instagram too, which you could find, but I'd say go for YouTube. I got more published videos there talking about archaeology, talking about conspiracy theories, all kinds of stuff. Good stuff to put on the background when you're cleaning your room, good hour and a half long videos. You can find that at either MiniMinuteMan or Milo Rossi. You'll find me. I got a red profile picture at the time of me making this video. Come check it out. I'd appreciate having you all guys on. And thank you, fellas, very much for having me here tonight. It was great talking with you. And I appreciate the banter. That was a good dialogue.
Yeah, it was fun.
A nice, sensible conversation.
Absolutely.
We're off to patreon.com, where we'll do a little mini-sode talking about this week's weirdest news out there, and where you can sponsor for $10,000.
Change Mathis's life forever.
And change my life forever. Yeah. Thank you. We'll see you next week. We love you. We appreciate you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Chilluminati podcast. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Mike Martin, joined by I don't know who they are. There's two. What? Harry Terrence Hill and Bud Spencer.
No.
Neo and Trinity.
No.
I don't understand, and I probably never will. Let me just tell you right now that there's two Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield.
I'm telling you, I think he literally just looked up famous duos
Cheech and Chong.
and has just been going through the list ever since.
I'm trying to dig deep. Which one of you is Dick Powell?
Me? Your name's Jesse Cox. I want Chilluminati. I want my necklace. I want Chilluminati. I want my
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Chilluminati podcast. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Mike Martin, joined by Alex and Jesse. Like a shooting star across the sky that's actually a UFO.